different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside.
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hairloss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Joseph W. Tillman, how are you, my friend?
Spencer X. Kobren, I'm doing just fine. How about you?
Is that for Xavier?
Exactly.
You know,
How'd you know?
Some troll is going to now put that on my Wikipedia. My middle name's not Xavier.
There could be worse middle names, like Mortimer.
That's true. Yeah.
Spencer Mortimer Kobren.
Everyone knows my middle name. They used to. My byline used to be Spencer David Kobren.
Mm-hmm.
But then the internet started to just refer to me as Spencer Kobren and people in the industry. And then I just decided to continue to use that. But honestly, on my byline, for my books, for anything that I write, I just got published in Dermatology Times last month. I have another article coming out. I'm going to leave my whole byline, Spencer David Kobren. I think my mother did a really good job with that name.
I think so. It flows nicely.
It's funny, when I was a kid, I just remember this guy, Dr. Elliott, my history teacher, and I was really not a great student. For some reason, this guy liked me. He was a heavy drinker, allegedly. And he used to come over and look over at my paper, and I didn't really understand the smell of booze back in the day, like at that time in my life. But whatever that smell was, it almost knocked me out. But what he told me was, he said, you have the name of an author. Like essentially, and he also told me other time I'm going to go places even though I was a lousy student. So I admire guys like that who kind of see things.
Yeah.
In students. Because as shitty as my grades were, there were certain people in my life that gave me the confidence to know maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe it's just some sort of learning disability, whatever it was. But I was smarter than the average beer. I don't know why I just went on that tangent, but thank you, Dr. Elliott, if you're still alive. 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. It's really great to be here. This is a live broadcast, so give us a call, 888-659-3727. For all of those who have been contacting me or trying to contact me via Instagram, and I do appreciate it. I see that the following is growing. This is where you can have all of your questions answered. I don't have the time, and I wish that I did, to answer 100 questions a day on Instagram. Now, if someone is about to jump in and have surgery the next day, then maybe I do my best to try to intervene to make sure that they have the information they need to maybe press the pause button. But as far as questions like, who do you recommend, Restore or going to Turkey? Who do you recommend, this person or that person?
Yeah.
What do you think about this product or service? Do you believe in coconut oil? Rubbing coconut oil into your scalp? I understand that rosemary oil helps with hair loss.
It does?
It does. Look, I told you what happened with that when I just kind of just pointed to the fact that these online influencers, especially when they're like big health influencers with millions of followers, when they get into the wrong wheelhouse or they're not in their wheelhouse, when it's their job just to create content about everything and anything health related, including hair loss, once they enter into our world, you really see that, maybe the information that they're providing is inaccurate. Not just in our field, because we're able to see that because this is what we do, but in other aspects of health. So just look at everyone out there online with a jaundiced eye, or at least a critical eye. Let's put it that way. And don't take what they're putting out there as the gospel. The shit that I got for that, I mean, it's like a cult or a religion with these people.
That's a good analogy. It's interesting because you mentioned the rosemary oil and people, mentioning this online that do have influence. I had my optometrist contact me and was asking me about rosemary oil after I gave him. I told him straight up. He's like, I want to look into preserving my hair, maybe regrowing some, but I don't want to take medication and I don't want to have surgery. I'm like, then you don't want to restore your hair or maintain your hair.
Yeah.
He goes, what do you mean? I'm like, well, these are your options. If you want to go, non-medical, if you want to go non-surgical, you can maybe look at, some of these things that are anecdotal, like laser caps and, much less anecdotal evidence with derma rolling or derma stamping or whatever you want to call it, things like that. But do you really want to walk into your office as a optometrist with an inflamed scalp from all this? And he goes, no, but I've been doing my research and I found out that rosemary oil is very effective because so-and-so said so. I'm like, oh God.
Look, you have dermatologists referring to studies on rosemary oil, which are very limited, by the way, when they're being interviewed by sites like, I guess, Birdie or Men's Health or whatever.
Yeah.
And there are even board-certified dermatologists who are willing to refer to these so-called studies to say, well, there seems to be some evidence, according to this study, that this particular essential oil can reverse hair loss or stop the progression of hair loss. Then you have everybody in all different cultures. I mean, it seems to have really stuck in the African American community, people who are using it to grow back their edges and shit like that. And you see these people online. And then if you just point out that, listen, the evidence really isn't there, and it's unlikely that if it's diluted correctly and if it's applied correctly, it's going to harm you, but it also can cause harm. But it's also very unlikely that whatever, in quotes, clinical data that's being presented by these studies is accurate. I don't think anyone fully understands how inaccurate. You could read 1 million studies, and if 70%, I should turn that around, if 30% are even quasi-accurate, that's a lot. And that goes across the board. Now, when you're talking about things like, when you're dealing with herbal products or preparations, nutritional science, it's even more sketchy. And I can tell you how easy it is to get a peer-reviewed paper published in many journals today, because there's so many journals out there that journals are competing for content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as long as you meet certain criteria, and that criteria is then discussed with the peer reviewers. And what is a peer reviewer? You set up a journal, all you have to do is say, hey, Bob, would you be a peer reviewer? Hey, Janet, would you like to peer review some stuff? And if they're physicians and they have credentials, people are like, yeah, sure, send me a couple of papers a year, I'll do it. And that is your peer review. So, not that studies are worthless, but all I can tell you is beware, especially in the hair loss field, beware of the studies and how they're conducted, especially on cosmeceuticals, topical preparations and shit like that, and especially when it comes to things like essential oils. Nutritional science, certain foods that do certain things potentially to help with cancer and things like that, seems to be a little bit more accuracy, but we're still not 100% sure. So I think that is just food for thought for anyone who's always pointing to the studies. I had people sending me studies on sulfites, SLS, and hair loss and stuff like that. And even if this person actually read the study, it would show, I knew the authors of this particular study, it would show that this particular study was discussing weathered hair or weathered hair syndrome. It wasn't listed as weathered hair syndrome, but some doctors will say that's what it is. And that's basically how these detergents affect the texture, the look, the feel of the hair, which is dead. It doesn't affect the manufacturing process. I just want to make sure you're awake, Joe.
I'm definitely awake. After that, how could I not be? That was reflective of everything I've been going through this week.
So what the fuck are you going through this week?
Oh, just stuff. Just stuff.
Like what?
I'm just glad it's all over. No. It's personal stuff. I'm just glad everything's done. It's a good day today, my friend. Friday is a good day because everything is over with. Everything is good. The weekend is going to be fantastic, and next week is going to be even better.
That's wonderful.
Creatively speaking, content creation-wise.
Look, dude, we need hope.
The whole
that's
nine
how,
yards.
that's how, the only way we could survive is having a little bit of hope.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
I'm going to let you take the show from here.
Interesting news today, or yesterday actually. I was sent. I actually, you know what? Can I pull this up? I think I can pull this up. Let me see if I can find it. I was contacted yesterday by someone that had some interesting information for me. See if I can pull it up real quick. Going to take a bit. It's too much of a hassle. But I was contacted. Someone sent me a link to a development on Reddit about a product that has been released recently to combat hair loss, and supposedly they were caught, at least in this situation, of photoshopping images.
Really?
Or one image. Yes.
So do the people on Reddit think that that's a rarity? Because that's
a good question. I don't know.
That
what
is the
they
status
think.
quo.
It is a status quo, but the problem was it was too obvious.
Well, that's the problem for the company.
It was, well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was that's the problem for the company.
What's the company again?
It was so obvious. That would be Cosma RNA.
That's right. Someone who else told me about this, like yesterday or day before yesterday.
And I have to say that it was sloppy work. Like I look at it, I'm like, yeah, it looks like they used the clone tool and then a smudge tool to try to blend it and did a bad job. And the problem is that they use the exact same image for the before and after, and then the after image was the same image as before, but just slightly modified with Photoshop. It was, or some sort of image altering piece of software, and it was a sloppy job. And yeah, it was. I don't know why they would like, if you're going to do that, at least do a good job of it. Make it difficult to point out. This looked like it was done on someone's iPad that was 57 years old, or 50. You know, in their
dare
50s,
you?
just not know what they're. I didn't. That kind of popped in my head after I realized.
That's right. I'm actually 58.
Exactly. See, now you're better. Now you'd be better at it.
Absolutely.
But,
had another year to train.
I thought that was. I thought that was interesting, and then let's see what else was there. Was there anything else going on?
Wait a second. I don't want to jump off to something else right now. I don't think people understand the profound impact that something that people, that this gotcha moment actually has. Here's the reality. Currently, there are 14 companies that have sent their white papers or information to us, to the American Hair Loss Association, who are all in the race to do something in this hair loss game. In general, the companies that do not provide us with information on their product or upcoming products are generally, I'm not saying every company, are the companies to look at with a jaundiced eye. Also the companies that make a hoopla about, getting approval or getting FDA, trying to get FDA approval or trying to get approval in the EU, and then saying that they're going to circumvent that and just put it out as a cosmeceutical. There is a reason for all of this. So I always, for years, people always wanted this program to focus on, what's upcoming, what's new. I think that's what great websites like Hair Loss Cure 2020 is all about.
Yeah, I agree.
Let people read about it. Let people gain, knowledge and about the potential future happenings in the field. But I always felt that if we discussed it too much on this broadcast, and this is what happened early on, not only did people get their hopes up, and then their hopes are squashed, people make life-changing decisions based on, in their mind, what's happening coming down the pike in the very near future. What do I mean by that? Mm-hmm. There are patients who will fly to another country and get in a very, very aggressive hair transplant procedure at a young age in the belief that something is going to come down the pike that's going to help provide them with unlimited grafts eventually, or that these cellular products or these other topical products perhaps will help them maintain their native hair and their grafts for many years to come. So they make life-altering decisions based on what they think is coming down the pike. And that's a problem.
20 years ago, you had people flying to a clinic because they were offering stem cell hair transplants.
Correct.
And all they were doing were splitting grafts in while still in the donor area and transplanting, 2,000 singles on a Norwood 5.
Now, I had tremendous pressure from this group, that way out contingency, to interview this doctor and to talk about, and what we decided to do at the time when we were really, when Bald Truth Talk was something that, we really tended to, is provide a section for any information about this particular doctor and that technique. And of course, that went crazy. But I also stated clearly that if I do this interview, and I'll do it for you guys because I know you really want it, and for some reason, this contingency believed that I was somehow not wanting this technology to come to fruition, technology in quotes, come to fruition, because I wanted to hold on to, for dear life to either conventional strip or, other techniques, including, the evolving FUE, because I was making, allegedly all this money, millions of dollars, by stopping the progress or the evolution of this field. When in reality, and you were as well, Joe, and so were guys like Pharaoh Mann, who's no longer, involved in the field. We were the main catalyst for change in many cases and to promote the evolution of this field, but in a safe, responsible manner. But all that's happening online still that is now transferred onto Reddit and to other social media platforms, it is the continued perpetuation of bullshit. And it's not necessarily the fault of those who are participating. They just don't know. They're not privy to the information that, honestly, that we get, either through the American Hair Loss Association or the IHS, or just that I basically know everybody in the field who's working on this. Or if someone's working on a product or a service, they contact me. And I could talk about this all day. But why am I going to go out there and bullshit the public and give them false hope? Our goal is to provide people with information about what's happening today so they can help themselves, even with the limited resources that they have. And what I mean by that, the limited technology, the limited, drug therapy. Sorry about the rant, but I think this type of information And what you just discussed, bringing out the fact that they were allegedly caught putting up fake images, that's the status quo of this industry.
Yeah.
And it causes harm, even if that's not true. Just the fact that information about this product and everyone's so excited about this, it causes harm. The end. Good night.
Good night. Nice. For some reason, everyone in the chat room is talking about Jan Michael Vincent. Why? There's some sort of discussion going on.
Things did not end well for that guy, man.
No. Oh my God. He's the Mickey Rourke of the early 2000s.
I mean, I actually think that he is not even the early 2000s. Jan Michael Vincent was he was big in the 70s and the early 80s.
But by the late 90s and early 2000s, he was looking like Mickey Rourke in the.
Yeah, but I think it was even more than just having unfortunate. Again, putting trust in bad doctors.
Yeah. Yeah, he.
Fucking Mickey Rourke has been through some shit, man.
They both have. But J. Michael Vincent, man, he was. Talk about some bad decisions. That guy had a career ahead of him.
And the genetics, the guy was a god.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. He was the Tom Cruise of the 70s.
The guy was he was built like Tarzan.
He was built like Tarzan.
Like before before the average Hollywood guy was really working out.
You mean that? Wait, the Buster Crabs Tarzan or which Tarzan?
You're really going back to Smooth Tarzan.
Smooth Tarzan. Smooth Tarzan looked like a 12-year-old Swedish boy, right?
Yeah. So anyway, I think that it's a really important topic, and it really does illustrate just how desperate we all are. The fact that Reddit and all these other communities are just in a frenzy about all this stuff. There's so many people who are sitting on their laptops at home or on their phones, and they are engaging and spending their time, hoping and trying to learn because they really want this hope.
Yeah.
And that trickles down to the hair transplant field and everything else. I mean, it's a constant flow, evergreen flow of bullshit. So it's a talk show, Joseph. So it's a back and forth conversation. We go back. I say something, then maybe you say something, and then I say something, then maybe you say something.
But I'm pulling double duty, looking at the chat, trying to see what's going on.
I'm looking at the chat too, and I'm running everything.
Looking for inspiration, and I'm not running everything today. That's what's great about today.
Listen, guys, call us 888-659-3727. This is a call-in show. We're here to provide you with the truth about anything and everything hair loss. We do not bend our knee to the fucking industry. And the reason is we don't have to. That's it.
The reason is because we have figured out a way to make the truth work for us.
That is true.
I like that. That works. That works. I've been paying attention to some of the work that's being put out by some clinics recently, and I got to say, I've mentioned this before, where sometimes I feel deflated. Like you and I have discussed this publicly on the show, and we talk about it behind the scenes sometimes. I get deflated because it's like, God, this industry is just devolving further than I ever thought possible. But then I like some of the people I follow on Instagram, I see them step up and they're putting out some really nice work. There's a couple of clinics that have contacted me to, they want to work with me. And in my discussions, this is what's encouraging for me. In my discussions with two clinics in particular about working together, I've gone over the concept of photos and presentation and video, and I've actually noticed online that they have both started to implement suggestions I've made to them, which means that they listen to me and they utilize my input better than some of the clinics I used to work with in the past.
You talking about Manny?
Because I'm talking about Manny.
Manny's work, I have to tell you, there's nothing. There are maybe 5 surgeons in all of the UK that are providing really great results. And I think Manny is he's like almost, here's the thing. It's like all of medicine and this entire industry, it's very political. But in the UK, it's ridiculous. The politicians in the UK who run that so-called society in the UK, I believe the damage that's being done by that particular society alone, because the leaders are providing, mediocre work at best. Mm-hmm. At best.
At best.
And they're trying to kind of, I would say, I've heard that they're trying, some of these people are trying to unfairly compete, and that's a nice way of putting it, with guys like Manny and other people who either may be looked at by us or, who are kind of like not necessarily, again, bending their knee to that particular organization. It's fucking ridiculous, man.
It is. It is.
And that's why so many people in the UK are flying overseas as well, because the work coming out of the UK in general, besides the price, it is ridiculous. It's archaic.
100%. But things are looking up. To resume my vein of thought. And I had another doctor, not in the UK, actually send me some photos saying, "Hey, you've told me some things in the past. What do you think of this? Am I doing a good job? What would you suggest?" Like it's nice to get. It's nice to see doctors that are interested in upping their game ethically, as far as making sure that they're presenting their work clearly, without any sort of trickery, and it's nice to see that, and especially in light of what we're just talking about with Cosma RNA and the issue that they got busted on. It's nice, and it gives me a bit of hope. It gives me a little bit of a, hey, there is a silver lining type of moment, So it's kind of motivating for me moving forward. Into next week, because I got some things I'm working on that I'm more excited about now than I was, because it just kind of puts me in that mood where I'm excited to be creative in presenting information in my content. So yeah, that's one thing that's going on.
Speaking of your content, I was watching your content with a friend. And, the commentary from the friend is, this guy put so much effort into this content. It's so educational. There's like nothing else out there from an actual authority. And while I kind of agree, I agree completely.
I kind of saw their point.
the question was, why isn't this person huge on YouTube? And my response was, I really don't know. No, my response was, I firmly believe that the long-form truth, a real expert, someone who has time on tissue, so to speak, in the trenches in this field for 20-some-odd years, someone who's not just telling people what they want to hear, but what they need to hear. It's not as attractive to this younger audience, to the people who go to YouTube. And it may not be as attractive in some cases to the algorithm itself, because it's not being sensationalized. It's just like, look, this industry is fucked up. This is the reality. Let's take a look at this case. This is why this case looks good. And I'll tell you why it's not necessarily palatable. There's a guy, who, and he seems like a very nice guy. He's very happy with his hair transplant. But he contacts me, or he comments on my posts or reels, whatever, on Instagram. And he's always defending his Turkish hair transplant clinics, that there's plenty of clinics out there, whatever, that are doing great work. I don't disagree with him. There's not plenty. There's, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Let's just round it off to saying less than 10, in my view. But with that said, when you look at his images, you see the aggressive hairline on a younger person, the lack of temporal points. He's a handsome guy, looks good. He's in good shape, all that stuff. I could see why he's happy, because he's got a wall of hair. But we know what's going to happen in the end with that. Mm-hmm. We know what's going to happen in the end. And it's very possible, so I noticed that people, when he makes a comment, people ask, well, where'd you go? Or whatever it is. And that's how the internet works. Now, I'm not going to remove those comments because I'm glad that this guy's happy. But he said something interesting to me, or posted something interesting, that, and he's happy, and all of his friends that he sent to this clinic are happy. And I'm just like, my God, this new normal is, they can't relate to you, Joseph. Now, the lucky ones do.
That is part of the issue, and it reminds me of a influencer that I talked about maybe a couple weeks ago, maybe it was last week, I don't know. This men's fashion influencer that I had a bunch of DMs back and forth with, and he mentioned where he was going. I was like, well, you probably should reconsider just based on what I've seen. And he said, too late. I'm scheduled to fly out tomorrow.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So he recently,
it's horrific,
made a post saying scams to look out for when considering a hair transplant. And of course, he mentioned some things. He's talking about graft counts.
Did he include a picture of his hair transplant?
Well, no, but he's talking. He has his result that's front and center.
That would be a joke.
But he's not including. He didn't have a picture of his immediate post-op, but I'm pretty sure there's something in his feed from 8 months prior, 9 months prior. But the point was, he said that he was in the airport when he was leaving, and there was someone else that also had a hair transplant, and they started talking, and they started comparing numbers, and the guy looked at his head and was like, well, I had the same number, and my work doesn't look anywhere near like yours. So bottom line, it's, contact me and I can put you in touch with my clinic, that kind of thing. It's like, really? Like,
but that's the way it works.
Do you have to be so obvious? And the guys that are listening, that are watching that, are they actually buying that? DM me and I'll let you know who it is.
They are buying it. Of course they're buying it. These are children in most cases. These are people who.
Why would I want to DM you? Why don't you put it in your post? Oh, is it because you want to be able to say, be sure to send them this code when you contact them, or to let them know that I sent you so you can get a kickback? Probably.
Well, that may be the case.
But anyway.
That may be the case, but and I'm not going to say whether it is or it isn't, but the thing is, you asked I know it was a rhetorical question, but yeah, I mean, people do fall for this shit. Yeah. You have to understand, you're dealing with mostly brains that have maybe they're fully formed now, maybe they're 25-year-olds, or they're still not fully formed. These are impulsive kids who are and this guy's an older guy. Like, what is he, in his 40s?
Yeah. He's about 42, I think, 43.
He's finished
somewhere.
By the time he's my age, even before that, he's just going to have a scalp full of scar tissue. That's the end. It's unless Cosmo RX, whatever it is, comes to the table, he's done.
This is the guy whose temple transition into his temple points were dense packed. with it just looks ridiculous.
Now, here's the thing, but again, that's the new
for
normal. He believes, and callers, we'll take your call in 1 second. Sorry, hold on. 888-659-3727. This guy looks at himself now. He has hair where he didn't have hair before. And he believes that this is what a hair transplant is supposed to look like. Like, yeah, it's kind of like, a boob job. You can tell someone's had a boob job in many cases, but that's what it is, So in their minds, this is what a hair transplant's supposed to look like. Not like yours, Joe. And it's funny, when my stuff goes out in the wild, when it's not just to my followers, and it gets out there into the wild, man, the comments that I get, especially when, like, whether it's a doctor talking about the potential of getting effed up in, going overseas for your hair transplant or whatever, if we're talking about it, always have some schmuck saying, well, it looks a lot better than your comb over, your bald dude, or some shit like that. I'm thinking, and look, I know what I look like. I'm thinking, really? Do you really believe that? 'Cause there's no way that you can. Because these guys look like they have a wig transplanted onto their heads. And that's not going to go away. That's it. It's over. They can't comb that shit over. They can't hide it. They're done. The end. And as their temporal points recede, and as they continue to lose hair that was moved from non-DHT resistant areas to the front and to the back, whatever, or to the mid-anterior scalp, it's all scar tissue. Guys, why'd you hang up? I was just about to take your call. Call back, 888-659-3727. We're trying to have a conversation here. It's a radio show. Well, it's not a radio show anymore. It's an internet broadcast.
It's a live stream.
Live stream. I don't even know. Whatever it is.
It's a live broadcast. That's what it is.
It's a live broadcast. 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Somebody just called back. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hello?
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
All right, who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Dan from LA.
Dan from Los Angeles.
Dan.
How are you, man? Beautiful day here today.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I had a question about a minoxidil shed and having a late minoxidil shed. I've been on 1 milligram of finasteride for the last 5 years with really good success.
That's great.
Totally changed everything. It was great. Haven't seen any problem with that. But once I kind of plateaued after the first few years and was like, okay, this is what I'm going to get out of it, kind of.
You wanted more hair.
I wanted a little bit more. It's funny, I called actually like a year ago and kind of reiterating this scenario, but it was, I tried dutasteride. It didn't agree with my body and got back onto just the finasteride. The greed.
Okay.
So I have hopped on, almost about a year ago this month, hopped on topical minoxidil foam and had incredible results. The first 2 months, there was no initial shed. First 2 months, just immediate growth. Just like really happy with everything. And then I'd say in the last month or two, it's kind of looking thinner.
It's looking thinner, or are you noticing, or you're also noticing more of an effluvium, more of a shed?
It's like when I run my fingers through my hair, I'm not pulling out a ton of hair. It's really just this specific area that I'm treating. Just the temples is really all that I'm treating. Is looking not like I'd say like 20%, 30% less.
Now, would you say 20% or 30% less dense than prior to you starting the drug? Or just like in the last 2 months, you feel you grew some hair back, it thickened up, and now you lost some of that ground?
Yeah. Still better than before I added in the minoxidil.
Yeah.
But not as good as like the first few months of the minoxidil. And it was really hard to find any anyone that may have gone through a similar thing where, well, my thinking is that maybe because I didn't have this initial shed in my hair, whatever growth phase it was in that I caught it at, is now potentially going through a little bit of like a shed just in the growth phase.
And that's actually, I mean, we're both not doctors, but actually that makes sense. And that's what I would suggest happened in your particular case. The fact that you saw immediate results, and you didn't go through a shed in 3 weeks or 2 weeks or 4 weeks, which can happen.
Never.
And then it took you 3 months to start to see a change. Now, here's the good news. For whatever reason, you're not going through a major effluvium, which can happen when you start using minoxidil. But you said you're only treating very specific areas. Even though you're only treating specific areas, you could still affect the entire scalp. So that's the good news. From what you're telling me, it seems to be kind of like the status quo of using topical or any minoxidil, but we definitely see that with foam or any topical minoxidil. And you seem to be in a better position than a lot of people who go through any type of a shed.
Yeah.
So I think that your instinct is correct in thinking that this is why this occurred. And I am sure that eventually your growth cycle will start to stabilize. And you'll probably see whatever hair that you regrew before, that means that those hair follicles are still manufacturing hair, it's still pumping out hair, and that means that it still can, and it probably will, once the cycle starts to kind of, normalize. What do you think, Joseph?
Yeah.
What was the? I heard the part about the delayed and the growth cycles, but what? Can you repeat what you think the actual cause is? I didn't catch that.
Oh, well, what I think is that it's just that I started implementing the minoxidil at just a specific time in the hair that the hair cycle was already in, so it just helped. Like it immediately just grew. There was no shed, and then after what's been about a year now, I'm now experiencing this first shed that's somewhat noticeable. Like I can see a little bit through. Like when it fully grew in, I had basically a feminine Norwood zero. Like it was just on my forehead. It was great. And then it's starting to I can kind of see through it a little bit more at these certain areas now.
Okay, but sorry, Spencer was saying 3 or 4 months in shedding, or I thought he said that, and you just said, I thought you said a year later it's starting to shed. Which is it? Sorry,
3 or 4 months is when I when I saw the significant growth, immediately, no shed.
Okay, okay. So and then here we are a year later, and you're starting to see those. Okay, all right. Sorry about that. Yeah. I was confused on that. So, my question to you is, with regards to your finasteride use, which has been fantastic. You said it's been taken for 5 years. Has your pharmacy changed the box that you're getting? Because you're obviously getting generic. Have you noticed anything different?
No, pill looks the same pharmacy.
But
it is
the
generic,
pill may look the same, but is it the same supplier of the generic?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. Because that could also be an issue where maybe, and we've talked about this before in the show,
right.
And very few people ever notice this because it's, a box is a box is a box, and they usually look fairly similar anyway. It may not be your minoxidil at all. There is a chance, I'm not going to say it's a big chance because I don't really know, but there is a chance that your pharmacy changed out where they're getting their finasteride from as they supply it to you. And that could potentially be why you're seeing some sort of shed. So if I were you, and I'll address the original assumption in just a moment. But if I were you, I would contact that pharmacy and ask if the supplier has been changed in the past 6 months, or whenever you got your last prescription refilled. Ask if it was changed between your last refill and the one before, however long that may have been.
So I'm glad Joe
address,
actually asked you specifics, because I was under the impression that you had growth, you didn't see any shedding for the first 2 or 3 months, and then after that, not a year after, but directly after, you started to go through a shed. So that's incorrect.
Right, no. That,
so it's been an entire year. So you had good results for an entire year.
yeah, and I'm, it's pretty well documented that most people have results that last longer than a year. I was just like, oh shit, is that it?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so
all right. So the entire time I'm speaking, I'm talking to you about potentially another issue, a normal shed that could happen 3 or 4 months after, as opposed to an initial shed after a month. So Joe's correct. It is possible that your generic are switched out, but it's also possible, just to be fair, this happened with finasteride with me, but it wasn't a year. It was maybe 9 months. Everything was kicked in. It was doing great. And then all of a sudden I went through this massive effluvium. Freaked me out. Went up to 7.5 milligrams a day. Yes, you heard me. Back in the day. And but then information started to come out from doctors and online about what they call the dread shed, or synchronized hair loss, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's possible they changed out your generic, but even after a year, it's still possible that, your hair growth cycle was interrupted by using this medication. And it just took this long for you to start to see a little bit less, shed some of that hair that you grew.
And I was going to say, because minoxidil is extending the anagen phase, maybe it did do that exact thing for you without inducing the shed, because not everyone has a shed. Not everyone has a shedding reaction to a hair loss medication, such as minoxidil, finasteride, dutasteride, whatever. That's not universal. So it could have extended your anagen phase for the hairs that you're treating or that are being treated, and then you could be going through, you could even be going through a resynchronization or a desynchronization, if you will, where some of the hairs are going back into their normal growth cycle, where normally they were fine anyway, like maybe they weren't being affected at all, but they were extended as far as their growth phase, and they're reverting back to their original growth phase, and they're not being affected by DHT. Like they're not, like, who knows? But the bottom line is, it could be one of a couple different things. I think the two things that we were talking about are very valid as possibilities. The minoxidil reaction I was talking about, that's just, as far as I'm concerned, that's just an issue of push through and let things, let the cards fall where they may over the next several months. Just observe and react accordingly. But as far as that finasteride question I was asking, get a hold of your pharmacy and ask them, because if the answer is yes, they have changed it. Find out which one it was before and ask them to reorder that one for you.
Sure. So when you get a different generic, is it that you run the risk of like the inconsistencies of the active ingredient, or is it more so that you?
Yes.
Okay, that's like the whole thing. It's not
because no two generics are going to be the same. Because every manufacturer has a different protocol for how they're making their medication, and it's been proven that generic manufacturers do not need to match ingredient for ingredient what the original manufacturer that they're trying to emulate actually put in their own medication. There's a ratio of patents that were originally protected that have to be met, but not all of them. And I'm not talking about just fillers either. It's not a filler issue like some people have come back at me with. That's not it. It can be like in one case with Lipitor, it was like a third of the patents that were originally protected need to be met, and that was it before it could be marketed as a legitimate alternative as a generic.
The FDA, at least what's happening in this country, and the FDA, even though they claim to kind of have a good handle on what's happening in places like India and China. The reality is, even if they did, they allow a 20% wiggle room when it comes to the active ingredient and fillers and stuff like that in all these medications. 20% is a lot. 20% when it comes to hair loss, 20% when it comes to life-saving medications. That could fuck you up.
Yeah. And are the pharmacies obligated then to give you, like, if you just make that request, to just give you that old, like the original?
No, they're not obligated, but any normal pharmacist will tell you the brand, and they would tell you whether or not it was switched out. And then you could say, can I get this brand some other way? And they say, well, if it's a big pharmacy, it's unlikely that they're going to be able to order the brand themselves. Say if it's a CVS or a Rite Aid or something like that. If it's a mom and pop store, I'm sure that if they really wanted to get it for you, they could.
Yeah.
All right? And it doesn't mean that it was switched out. You know, it could actually be just from the addition of topical, even though it's been a year.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I last night when I was kind of at a loss for information, trying to find this sort of like 1 year shed thing, I went to my last resort, which was Chat GPT, and asked this question, and it gave very much a similar answer that you guys have given me. So
really?
I'm sure it's taken a lot of information that you guys have put out there to like concoct its answer, which I think is kind of cool.
It's very cool. Now, is this ChatGPT 4?
Whichever version is available on the app, the public free version.
Okay, so I think it's 3 or 3.5.
But I asked the same question. I gave it my, how long I've been taking finance. I gave it all of the information. It was really cool how I could just throw it everything and see what it would say just for.
I find that fascinating. I would say since that we've been preaching this for so long, and I was preaching it even before Joe and I were doing the show together, I find that fascinating because in general, if you just Googled it, you're not going to find this information. So that's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's very interesting how it came up with it. Like a pretty, I don't know. I was able to sleep at night after I saw the answer.
Wow.
So
well, good for you. I think that's awesome.
GPT says that it is version 3.5 on the app.
Interesting.
Okay. Well then,
just so everyone knows.
All right, brother. Well, listen, good luck. I think you're going to be fine. It sounds like you've been doing very well. How old are you, by the way?
I'm almost 30.
Almost 30. Well,
almost 30. All right.
So, yeah, good luck. And you're certainly not considering hair transplant surgery at this point, are you?
Definitely not. I'd show you photos if I could, and no. I don't need a transplant. I just want to figure out my medications.
All right, brother. Well, I'm glad you found the show. I'm glad you're doing well, and I think you're going to be fine. So good luck.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. You guys are the best two dads anyone could ask for.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. Don't make me feel old, Joe. Take it easy.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
See you, son.
888-659-3727. Two dads.
Best
crying out loud.
If that didn't sound like a modern 2023 couple, I don't know what does. My two dads.
That's a great show.
My two dads.
I don't know if it exists, but I mean, we should pitch Netflix or someone. Oh God. I mean, I know we're not allowed to do that right now because there's a writer's strike, but I'm not in the union.
And an actor's strike.
You could star in it. We could both star in it, and I could write it.
Well, I don't.
We'd be scabs.
So many directions. We'd be scabs.
We'd be breaking through the picket lines.
Walk across that picket line, baby.
Listen, I know people in the guild, good friends of mine, people who I love. But honestly, man, I see it as an opportunity. Have some fun. You're not going to make a lot of money doing it. It's not like the old days.
No.
But it's good drinking money. Guys, 888-659-3727. I'm actually struggling with whether or not I'm going to drink tonight because I'm going out and I've been really good and just training and, doing my best to eat right and all that stuff. But every once in a while, I like getting fucked up.
That's another good show.
Now, I know it's not good for my health, especially being a man of a certain age. But every once in a while, I like going out and getting fucked up. You Uber, you have a good time. You speak to complete strangers about bullshit that you don't really care about, but everyone's trying to impress you. And I lie to them about what I do because I don't want them asking hair loss questions.
Exactly. Yeah. You want to avoid that like the plague.
Now, you could say, if you say you're an accountant, everything just stops. That works.
Wait. There we go.
I told this
I'm an accountant.
I told this one younger woman that I was a geriatric underwear model, and it's hilarious that she thought that was a real thing.
A real thing, yeah.
And we spoke about it for at least an hour until I had to say, listen, I got to tell you, man, I was just fucking around.
Did you get the drink from the laugh?
Yeah, she laughed. She still wanted it. 888-659-3727. I'm just kidding people. How sexist is that? It's not even sexist. Is it sexist to say that someone is, that you were able to make someone laugh and hang out enough that they were attracted to you? It's not terrible. I don't even know what to say anymore. Let's take a phone call. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hi, it's AJ.
AJ, what's happening, man?
What's up, AJ?
Hey, so hey guys, how you doing?
All right, where are you calling from, man?
Pretty good.
Up in New York, walking through the streets, and I thought I'd give you guys a quick call.
What's happening, man? You're in Manhattan right now?
That's right.
Dude, you gotta keep your head on a swivel. You shouldn't be on the fucking phone.
Well, I'm about to do what you said. Go have some drinks and have a good time. But I thought I'd give you a quick call and ask you a question.
Sure.
Because I've been on oral finasteride for 17 years now. And I decided I wanted to try a topical finasteride. And I don't want to say which company's formulation I'm using, but I've been using it for about 6-7 months. I haven't seen any progress. And I kind of feel like I've lost a little bit of hair.
Well,
so I just wanted to get your thoughts.
Why not tell us what? I'm just curious the brand.
Because I don't want to say anything negative, because maybe it just needs more time to work.
All right. Well, you're very kind, and I think that's a very mature way of handling it.
Let me ask you two questions.
Good.
Let me ask you two questions. Is your hair? Do you still have a lot of hair?
I still have hair. I have a lot of. Most people say I have a lot of hair.
Okay.
But
Is the
like last summer?
Yeah. Is the topical formulation quite thick, or is it fairly thin, like almost like a water, like water thin
formulation?
Okay, that's all I need to know.
All right, that's all we need to know.
That's all we need to know.
Here, listen, man. 7 months. It's still early days, but if you feel that things have gotten worse, no, I have one, I think, very important question. Were you just continuing to maintain your hair and you just wanted a little boost, or did you notice that you were losing some ground over the years?
I noticed.
Good question.
It started to thin a little bit over the fall.
Now, but I'm saying
before
you got on the topical dutasteride, just when you were on finasteride, so you noticed things changing before you got on the drug.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And how much?
Not terribly, but I did notice it was thinning a little bit over the fall.
Okay. Now, when you say thinning a little bit, you just noticed more scalp, or you actually physically saw hair falling out?
I think when I would get in the shower, I'd see my scalp a little bit more.
Okay. All right. Well, here's the thing. And how long were you on? A decade, you said?
No, I continue to use the oral finasteride, and I've been on it for 17 years.
17 years. Okay. So I guess my question is, just to be clear, so before you started topical dutasteride, you noticed that you had some excess thinning, or you notice more thinning in the fall?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right.
Now I feel like there's even a little more. I don't know if it's just progressing or there's a correlation to using the topical detasteride.
It's possible that it's just progressing. It's possible that the topical detasteride is doing nothing for you. And it's possible that it is exacerbating the situation. Those are all possibilities. It's also possible that if you continue using it, that you may see some results in a few months. You know, my first thought is always, when you're on finasteride, and I'll ask you this, what's your dosage? Are you taking 1 milligram a day currently?
1 milligram.
Okay. My thought is this, and this is what I've done for myself. You know, you still have leeway to, and you need to talk to your doctor about this, but because you're taking a low dosage, the recommended dosage, you still have leeway to slightly up your dosage or maybe add an extra pill in a week or whatever it is to potentially lower your DHT even more, or just fight the hormonal battle using the drug that you've been on for a very long time. Now, I recently upped my dosage maybe a year ago, and I still have more room. But this is a drug that really can slow the progression for decades or decade or more. But you will notice that your hair loss, it's still going to progress, even if you're the greatest responder in the world. But by manipulating that dosage or titrating the dose, a lot of people see benefits from that. I'm not a fan of just adding something on to some, if I'm already taking a medication, I'd rather play with that medication a little bit than just adding something to the mix. But you've already done that. So it is possible that, you can talk to your doctor about potentially, if you're not concerned about it, manipulating or just playing with the dosage of your finasteride to see if that helps in any way.
Okay.
I mean, does that make sense to you? Was I clear? I know that I was a little verbose, but
yeah. No, I got it.
Yeah, and as far as this hurting you, anytime you change or add something to your regimen, it could have either positive or negative effects. That's just the way hair loss works, and that's the way these medications work. Joe, do you have anything to add?
No, that sounds very logical and well thought out. Good advice.
Okay. So,
one last question before I let you guys go.
Sure.
Do you think it's normal to be experiencing shedding going on 7 months?
It is, especially, you can go, telogen effluvium from medication can last a long time. It can last 12 months. It can last longer than that in some cases, in severe cases. And that's, you're normally not told that. It's always like, well, the average is a few months and then you get back, then it starts to grow back. I've known people have been in telogen effluviums for a year or more. But they stuck with the medication and it turned around.
Yeah.
So that's a frightening situation to be in, especially if you're really going through a massive shed. But it doesn't sound that way to me from what you've indicated, is it?
Minor shed.
Minor
Not
shed.
massive, but minor.
Okay.
I wouldn't worry about it. I'd push through.
Yeah.
Yeah, push through.
Okay.
You're already on the medication. You're using it. Your body's adjusting to it. So, we're both not physicians, but in our, experience over all these years, pushing through it's probably better to push through than just to jump off.
Okay.
All right, brother?
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
Good luck. Enjoy your Friday.
All right.
Take care.
Good luck.
All right, bye.
888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. We do have lines open. As a matter of fact, we have every effing line open right now.
I had to ask those questions about how thick it is and how much hair he has because I thought I already knew what the issue might be. And I think I'm right. Because for me to ask that question beforehand,
you need to explain.
I have my theory. Need to explain.
Explain.
The challenge that I expected when I was taking a particular thicker formulation of a topical was how much of it is actually getting to my scalp for it to then be absorbed deep enough for the follicles versus how much is not getting to my scalp and is stuck in my hair,
just a good
acting as an
styling
amazing styling agent.
Yeah.
And I think that's I think that that's a problem for people that are less bald than others trying to use a topical. It has to be something that's easily filtering down to the actual scalp as opposed to getting stopped by a voluminous amount of hair between the topical and the scalp itself. That's my logic anyway.
I think that's a very logical assertion, Joseph.
I think so. I think it makes sense. I mean,
yeah.
When you think about it, it's like, how is it going to get the scalp when you have all these layers of hair in between? And I actually spoke to someone about this, a doctor that's actually using it, and he said that he thins it out. But then if you're thinning it out, then doesn't that reduce the potential concentration and the efficacy of the absorption process? I don't know.
Here's the thing that people need to know.
None of it makes sense to me.
Everybody and their mother is coming up with their own topicals. There's a few that are kind of really reaching the consumer and into the is it lexicon?
Yes.
That's really out there in a way that everyone's asking us about. Everyone's contacting the AHLA or contacting us directly or contacting me personally through Instagram. Which, by the way, I'm going to repeat myself. I can't answer all your questions. I only have like 9,000 some odd followers, and it's already overwhelming. I can't imagine people who have 1 million followers what they have to deal with.
Well, now you can get a bot to do it for you.
I don't want to do that. You know what? What I should do is have some sort of automated response and just say, call the show on Fridays or call Joe on these days.
Yeah. Well, actually, you have. I saw one response that you gave to someone.
Yeah.
What's Jawade Muhammad in the chat room? He goes, combing hair in different directions to get it on the scalp. I don't think that's it. I understand the logic behind it, but when you think about it, if it's in the hair and you're combing it around, you're just spreading it through the hair more, because a comb doesn't direct material off of hair down onto the scalp itself.
I think what he meant is applying it after you comb your hair in different directions. You apply it in those areas directly onto the scalp as opposed to just plopping it into one area. So like, you part your hair and then you put it in there, you tap it in, and then you part it again, you put it in there and tap it in, which I used to do, by the way, back in the day when I first started to lose my hair with some crap that I was buying in Bethesda, Maryland. That's another story. I wrote about that actually in the original The Bald Truth. And I would sit there, and then I would put a wet towel in a microwave, and I was supposed to put it on my head. I mean, I spent 2 hours a night working on this crap. I never forget, I met this girl, and I was like 22 years old, some shit. Brought her back to my place when I was living in Bethesda. Did what we had to do. I got up, and I started the process. And she's like, what the F are you doing? And I was just like, look, honey, I'm losing my hair. This is what I got to do. And it was all right. She lit her cigarette and had a drink, and that was it. People used to smoke back then, by the way.
Yes, I heard rumors.
Like in their apartments. Like it was just a normal thing. 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Yes, hi, it's Robbie from Vancouver.
Robbie from Vancouver. How are you?
Hello, Robbie.
Hello, Joe. How you guys doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. What's going on?
Pretty good.
Just enjoying the hot weather, and just wanted to chime in on this subject concerning minoxidil getting down to the follicles.
Okay.
And what I do is I purchase the Kirkland brand from Costco, the 5% topical foam, and I heat up the nozzle over some gentle heat over the gas stove, and I pinch off the top of that orifice if it's 3/16 diameter. In the orientation, if it were to be inverted with my arm to apply the product top of scalp, so it's oriented in the right way where it's comfortable to apply it in a linear direction. And when that nozzle gets pinched off, I'll then put a 4,000th hole, like a bobby pin hole through the tip. And what happens is the product becomes pressurized as it goes through the nozzle, and it's, I don't know how many PSI it is, but it's significantly faster volume, which actually shoots down to the scalp.
Have you written about this on Reddit? Because you sound like one of the guys that would get a lot of attention, man.
No, I just noticed that, each can, when you buy a 6-pack, it says 6 months. And I find that I go through it in 2.5 months.
No, that's actually, listen, that's actually very, creative, and it shows a lot of ingenuity. And honestly, I have done similar things with different products, and I totally get it. But when you hear someone explaining it, the way in which you're explaining it, which is in a very just technical, lucid way, you sound like one of these guys that really spend a lot of time on the message forums, and then everyone looks at you as a god. So good for you.
Well, I appreciate the kudos. And one more comment would be, as this application to your scalp, I'll do one light bead, if we call it one light pass down the center line of the scalp. Then I'll move over 1 inch, one more pass, and then I'll move 1 more inch, one more pass. I'll do 5 lines or 6 lines total. And then what I do is I'll pat down my hair flat, and I'll just literally move my hand 1 inch to the right, 1 inch to the left, and just gently back and forth, and allow the hair to be fully saturated in minoxidil, because it's inevitably going to get covered. And so
What do you do for a living, man?
Well, I don't know if I'm at liberty to discuss that because it's not really relevant.
I'm just asking. You could say the type of field you're in, or if it's a technical field. But I was just curious. I'm just trying to figure out what kind of a person you are.
Well, I'm a male dancer.
You're a male dancer.
I actually own and manage commercial real estate.
Okay. Male dancer can mean a lot of things, by the way. But yeah, so you're in commercial real estate. That's not a great business to be in right now, is it?
Well, that depends on location.
True. That's true. I'm just effing with you. It certainly is not a great place to be here in Los Angeles or in New York City. I can tell you that.
Okay.
It's falling apart. But anyway, man, listen, I think that's really good advice. And it's also, I like the ingenuity and the fact that you're able to get the application that you need all over your scalp. Most people don't take the time. They're not as thorough or meticulous or as innovative as you are. And that's what you have to be in this game. I tell people this all the time. When I tell people who ask about, they try hair systems or they want to wear a hair system, I try to explain to them that you can't just go to one of these places and get it fixed and glued on every 6 weeks like they claim. If you're not innovative and you don't have your own, if you're not detail oriented and you don't know how to finesse it yourself, it is not going to be passable. So anything that you do in this process, including, I think, titrating your medication, whatever it is, it's not one size fits all. And what you've done is great. It would be great if someone could create an applicator like that, or maybe you can. Sell it online. You make a fortune.
I don't know. I don't think it's that innovative. But I do have a question regarding oral minoxidil. I consulted my GP, and he was quite surprised to find that it was an off-label medication. Concerning health risks for cardiovascular issues, I'm really not abreast of the matter, and I'm sure it's been widely discussed on this on this program.
So he was
broken
surprised that it was being prescribed for hair loss, or he was surprised when he found out that it wasn't approved for hair loss.
I don't think that he was. I don't think he was really aware of the medication per se as a general practitioner. He was quite surprised to say, "Oh, this is off-label. I'm not really sure I want to prescribe this for you. We need a little more information." He ultimately referred me to a dermatologist, and I actually had an appointment yesterday. And the derm had mentioned that they prescribe 2.5 milligram oral minoxidil mostly to female.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess
Makes sense.
I don't want to reiterate what you guys have talked about for years. I mean, it probably sounds like a broken record, but
No, you don't. Listen, I've been doing the exact same show for 26 years. Every week. People have the same questions, but it's a whole new group of people who are listening. So don't worry about it, man. It's a good question. So what's your question? Yes, they do. It is really being heavily prescribed to women now. In light of the mainstream press that it got a few months ago or about a year ago, everyone is prescribing to women now, for sure.
Yeah.
The question is for the risk to reward benefit, and I know it's subjective. For a 43-year-old male who is relatively healthy, quite lean and athletic to a degree, no comorbidities or whatever you call them, and predisposed dispositions or cardiac issues, quite healthy. Would it be reasonable to assume that I take a medication as prescribed and monitor one's, blood panel on a biweekly basis just to ensure that the vascular system is not, because there are significant health risks to taking this medication, notwithstanding being a male, which is statistically, predisposed to heart issues.
Joe, I'm going to let you answer this, and I'll chime in.
Well, I don't think a blood panel is necessary because it's not affecting really, hormonal balance or anything of that sort. It's simply a vasodilator that's affecting blood pressure, and there are a couple of other potential side effects that go with it, but not something I think that a blood panel would really aid you as far as long-term monitoring. I think that what would be more beneficial would be to have your cardiac system actually tested before you start taking it, have an EKG, have that set up as a baseline, blood pressure obviously as a baseline, and then monitor those vitals over time to see how the medication's affecting you. But ultimately, what you would mostly run into as a side effect would be a difference in how you actually feel. You may start to feel a bit lethargic after taking it, but a lot of people don't, because 2.5 milligram of minoxidil is actually quite low when compared to how it's prescribed for actual patients that need it as a blood pressure medication, where you're talking 40 milligrams, 100 milligrams in some cases. So 2.5 is really a very low dose in the bigger picture. But there's
also,
nothing
like
wrong
Joe
with,
said, you can't tell if you have pericarditis from a blood panel. You'd have to get EKG, chest X-ray, MRI, whatever, to check for that, and you'd feel it for sure. So the blood panel won't do anything. You can obviously, if you're concerned about your blood pressure, which you should be, you can check your blood pressure, have a cuff at home, make sure everything's operating well. If you're not experiencing any edema, whether it's ankle or periorbital or periocular, underneath your eyes, swelling.
Yeah, periocular.
Which is pretty common as an adverse side effect if you experience it. But the truth is, most people get on this medication, they are just eating your typical Western diet. They're not necessarily training. They're not drinking enough liquids, enough water. So a lot of people who are just, eating a ton of carbs mixed with sodium, which sodium without carbs, you're not really going to swell. But this type of medication could exacerbate, water retention or make you. A lot of people don't even realize they're retaining water every day. But if you're in really good shape, you can tell exactly what's going on with your body. So I think if you're on the right diet and you're considering the medication and you watch your general health and you are working with a doctor, I mean, it's unlikely you're going to have any heart issues, at least according to, this drug has been, as Joe mentioned, prescribed at a much higher dosage for many, 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 many years, since 1970 something?
Late 70s, I think.
Yeah.
Around 1980, give or take.
Yeah. So I'm not telling you to do it. We're not doctors. But I would say that if a doctor is willing to work with you and it's something you really want to do and you think you're losing ground currently, then it is certainly an option, especially if you're well monitored.
Right. I should say that when I say blood panel blood work, really what I was referring to was the modes of monitoring one's vascular health. A cuff and EKG, systolic, diastolic pressures and stuff like that.
Right.
So thank you for clarifying that. I should also just make a last comment. I'm talking to a friend of mine who's an epidemiologist, and she read some of the abstract of this medication, and she actually, I don't want to sort of slander the medication in any way, but she had said, I absolutely would not recommend a medication if it calls into question edemas or vascular issue. In fact, why don't you just stick with topical foam? That can't hurt you. What are your thoughts concerning that?
I think that she seems like a logical, person. She's a, and you also have to understand that in her mind, people are prescribing this medication for what she may consider to be just a wholly cosmetic issue, as opposed to how it affects people's lives emotionally and how it affects their interpersonal relationships and how it may affect their physical health just by, being depressed, lowering your immune system, not taking care of yourself, whatever. There's a lot of factors when I think a lot of factors go into choosing to take a medicine to keep your hair. And a lot of physicians will diminish that reality and say, look, you're not dying, you're not having, you're not treating high blood pressure. I wouldn't take the chance. So it really is, you have to weigh the risk versus benefits. And if it's something that you are unwilling to risk, because there are side effects with any medication, then, it's really up to you. But I think her advice is fair.
Well, I also think it's worth noting that for her to say that she doesn't understand why someone would be prescribing something that can initiate some sort of development of edema. Well, that's what's going on with topical minoxidil that you're taking right now. That is one of the listed potential side effects, whether it be foam, whether it be liquid. The format of its delivery is irrelevant. The side effects can be the same, regardless of how it's actually applied, orally or topically. So it's been prescribed, quote unquote, in some form or another for hair loss with those potential side effects since 1986 when it was first cleared for hair loss. So it is logical. I understand the concern that she would have and the position that she would present, but it's been presented like this for hair loss sufferers for almost 40 years as it is. So that's just something to consider when you're looking at that, because these are actual side effects that have been talked about and presented in the hair loss version, the topical version of minoxidil from the start.
And it's also if you look at their inserts, it's on there as well. And just to answer Carolina's question in the chat, it's antihypertensive. It's not a statin. But yeah, man, I think, listen, if you're going to speak to doctors who are not familiar or not treating hair loss patients in general, that's going to be their reaction, and it makes sense.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
All right, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, you guys are doing fantastic work, and the two of you look very, very handsome. Enjoy your summer.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I think you really made Joe's day. All right, brother. Take care.
We obviously have a very informed and intelligent caller on the line. Thank you very much.
Take care. Phone number 888-659-3727. We have a few more minutes if anyone wants to call the show. But I'm not begging for calls because I'm just going to go. I'm going to leave. I may do some drinking tonight. I have an opportunity. I'm not sure. I'm struggling over it, Joe. I really am because I have been training really hard consistently.
I'm starting to train really hard. My legs are killing me. My hip. I'm having old man problems now. I was doing way too many squats, and yes, while my legs are blown out, and I actually enjoy that feeling, my hip is tight. So now tonight when we're done, I actually need to do some stretches. I didn't prep for my squats properly.
You got to prep, man.
I'm paying the price.
But honestly, you're not doing enough squats. If you're able to sit on the toilet without like easily the next day or in 2 days after squats, you're not doing enough yet.
Oh no, my life is difficult right now just moving. No. Trust me, I did plenty of squats.
But if I do go drinking, even if I have a couple of drinks, if I want to train tomorrow, it's going to be slightly off. It's not like I used to be able to recoup like in my 20s and 30s. I mean, it would be a hard night. I'm talking about shots. In my 20s, there were cigarettes involved, all kinds of craziness, and I'd be able to like go out and play 3-on-3, no problem. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, just
11 o'clock in the morning, but I was good.
Yeah. Nothing like a good Bloody Mary to clear things up the next morning.
Those days are
and you're
over,
on the courts.
Man. If I have 3 drinks, I wake up the next day like I don't even know what happened to me. I'm like, where's my wallet? What's going
that bus
on?
Come from?
I gotta start piecing together my night through receipts and shit. Anyway, let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, Spencer. How you doing today?
I'm okay. Who's this?
This is Hungry Like the Wolf again. I'm calling in again because I had a great conversation with your partner there, Joe, yesterday. And I just wanted to let you know that you still have people that watch your show or listen to your show that are from old school. So you were saying earlier that you have a new crowd.
How long have you been listening?
We're talking to an old hair loss help guy.
Right.
Listen to what?
And you're not only that, but I've been listening to the days where you were promoting Revivagen, and I was one of the people that got Revivagen because of you.
Holy cow! But remember those sponsors. You remember what I used to say?
Yeah, I remember. I remember the days of you promoting Revivagen, and I'll tell you, I did use it, and it did help. I mean, I have to tell you, it did help a little bit.
Well, how did I? But I want to let people know, how did I promote it? How did I let them sponsor the show? Essentially, I said, if you are not doing well on FDA-approved products, or you want to add something to your regimen, this is the only non-FDA-approved product that we have allowed to sponsor the program. And I always wanted to make that clear so people didn't choose something that was, in quotes, all natural, or that had natural DHT blockers over medication, especially back in the 90s.
Well, you had to, another reason why you wanted to get that product is that the doctor himself had great hair. So, that was a good reason alone just to get it.
It's funny
so did the salesman, and he still has great hair.
Yeah, he still does. He must be using his product. It must be working.
When I first moved to Los Angeles, there was a car dealer and I didn't realize I was well known because I just didn't know, I mean, L.A., while it's a big radio market, it's kind of smaller. I can't explain it, but we were on the biggest station in Los Angeles. I went there looking for a car, asked him my name, whatever, checked my credit. He's like, holy cow. And he points to his head, he's like, Revivagen.
Your credit sucks.
Oh,
sorry, wrong discussion.
That's the wrong one. And I found that to be fascinating and also unsettling at the same time. Once I moved here, it's like we're leasing an apartment. The person knew me in the leasing, office. It's a different time, man. But anyway, good to hear you.
Yeah. Hey, you know what I wanted to tell you? Isn't it interesting how minoxidil and finasteride are playing Freaky Friday? Because you remember, finasteride was first oral and topical minoxidil, and now everybody's switching around where they're thinking, let me start using topical finasteride an oral minoxidil. Isn't that interesting how they've switched?
It's interesting on many levels. One, it just indicates that there's nothing else. This is all we got.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's fuck around with it.
Yep.
It indicates we're done.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Let's invent a new version of the same thing we've been using for the past 15, 20 years.
And then let's concoct our own and sell it as something that's brand new. And
well, look at the newbies. It's working. They're all going crazy over the oral minoxidil. That's what's going on now. And the doctors they're putting all these videos out with some of the doctors that are encouraging that it seems to be a good way to go.
It can be a good way to go. My whole thing about applying anything to your scalp is that it's a pain in the ass. I'd much rather, for me, on a personal level, just pop a pill and forget about it.
Exactly. Yep.
But I also come from a time where if someone in a bar opened their hand and they had a button in it, and I would just swallow it, whatever. So I come from a different mindset.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well,
brother,
Joe,
what can we do for you?
Yesterday, by the way, your show was great. That was good that you have that doctor on there. She was very, very helpful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Yeah, she's really good on camera. She's really good answering questions. So, yeah, glad you enjoyed the show.
So, Spencer,
thank you. Thanks for calling yesterday. It was great hearing from you.
The doctor yesterday. Okay, currently I have a natural widow's peak, and I would say it's kind of thick. So my question was, they're going to bring my hairline down a little bit lower, probably close to where the widow's peak is. So I guess basically I would have to leave my widow's peak there and just straighten it out and not have them recreate a new widow's peak, correct?
Do you just said Joe, or you want me to answer the question?
Or Spencer or Joe?
If you have a well-established widow's peak that is at a very natural and kind of a proper position, an appropriate position for your age, why would you F with that?
No, I agree.
Because he hates it.
I'm just saying you would want to bring the hairline down to that same level,
and you want to match it as best as possible. And if you ever do begin to lose that widow's peak, they can they can do a touch up.
Right. The problem is like what Dr. Erica said yesterday is that widow's peaks are usually, not every time, but usually also a cowlick. And so the challenge is creating angle and directions that match that cowlick in the immediate vicinity of the widow's peak, because if you don't, then it doesn't look natural. I've seen it. Like I've seen patients.
Very good point, actually.
Where they've tried to have this done and it doesn't look good. So that's
well, it also depends on
how
thick is the widow's peak, and does it go?
Yeah.
Does it go like? Is it thin, or is it kind of very thick and stark right now compared to the hair on the sides?
I would say my hair is very similar to Keanu Reeves. Very similar to Keanu Reeves, and he has a widow's peak too.
Yeah. Now, very similar as it is, meaning that it's just as you have the same level of recession.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. Pretty close to that.
All right. So, I mean, he still is a guy, especially for his age. It looks like he has a very full head of hair, even though we've seen it move back to some degree over the years.
Right.
So
I understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it's that thick, is it that thick overall?
It's I have pretty decent hair. Yeah, I would say it's pretty decent. I'm just bringing it down a little bit because I have a very high forehead.
All right. Well, I understand that. That's
right.
That's why I kind of comb mine over, and as they would say, and the Brits would say, I wear it in kind of a fringe.
Right.
Or as the assholes would say, a swoop. But whatever.
Right.
But so I understand your issue. Here's the thing. I mean, did Dr. Bonzal discuss the reality of that if you have dense hair and you're lowering your hairline, it could take a few passes to make it look natural?
She was recommending to keep it. She says if it's there, she recommends to just keep it there, which is probably most likely I'm going to do. I'm going to talk to the doctor when he sees me in person, and then I'll go from there. But I just was wondering what your opinion was. That's all.
Okay. And so my opinion is similar to hers?
Basically, she said to basically leave it alone and work around it.
Yeah.
Because it has pretty decent density still.
Yeah. Well, that was my first thought, but Joe brought up a good point, I think. And now let me ask you a question. If you comb your hair, or if it's full, are you able to kind of let it kind of lay on your forehead a little bit?
Yeah, I do. I wear it just dead down.
And so what happens, I mean, in general, when you're just living your life, is it an issue, or are you able to just feel comfortable?
It would be nice to be able to style it differently, to push it back and be happy.
Oh, man,
that
would be amazing, man. Do you know what I would look like if I was able to pull my hair back again? Holy cow. Bring me up 2 points.
Yep. And so, I mean, people are always saying, they'll go, some people say, mostly bald guys, they'll say, is he wearing a wig? Is he wearing a wig? Because, I push it, I have it combed down a little bit.
Oh, I've gotten the comb over jokes. I've gotten that's the worst wig ever. And I've gotten, which is hilarious to me, that I'm a con man. I've never lost a hair in my life, which is hilarious to me.
Oh my God! No, that's not true. Even from somebody with a good head of hair about your age, that's not true. I can see your loss. Very, very, very.
Well, don't be mean about it. Jesus Christ! All right, brother. Listen, I appreciate it, and I'm glad. I wish you the best of luck, and I think that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the advice I got, Joe always, he always steered me away from doing it. So and the fact that you haven't done it makes me feel like that maybe I'm pulling the trigger for maybe.
No. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna pause that. Pause your thought right there.
I shouldn't care what other people think.
No. I think that if you really have the hair like Keanu Reeves, and how old are you?
I'm a year younger than you.
Okay, and you're old.
Huh?
No, I'm just kidding. And
I look very youthful.
I'm sure we all do. We all do, brother. We look at ourselves. We all look very youthful. I'm just kidding. I'm sure you do. I'm sure you're in great shape. And the fact that you have hair is fantastic.
Only because I've been listening to you for 20 years to know what to do.
I appreciate that, and I'm glad that we were able to help. But
and that's serious, and I'm being serious. You have been the biggest educator of all for me, and then of course Joe too. But if I had to tell you who is the most influential for my hair, it would be you, definitely. There's no doubt. I've been listening to you for a long time, and I would say that a lot of the way you are, I don't want to go into detail, but we have a lot of similarities. There's a lot of similarities to us.
What does that mean? Tell me.
I identify with you really.
You can go in detail. I'm curious.
No, basically that we both, at a very young age, hair was very important to us.
Yeah.
Very important to us.
And he also bought a mannequin that looks like you and has it in his bedroom. But,
Yeah, sure. No, Joe, I have one of you instead. No, it's you. No, I have one of you. And by the way,
well, now I'm
about
flattered.
my two dads, about your my two dads, you might have something there. You guys.
That's funny.
You guys would be perfect for that. I remember that show. It was great. The only thing you have to find is a child that doesn't know who their father is, and then you're set.
That's not hard. I live in Los Angeles, dude. All right, Brett.
Spencer, getting back to the seriousness, you have been the biggest influence on me as far as doing what to do, and of course, through the forums, I've met other people like Joe that. Education is free, and it's nice. And a lot of these people that are on now, the younger crowd, they got to be careful because you're just like you guys said with social media, these influencers and these TikToks that they put on, these TikTok videos, it makes it look like, oh my God, that could be me too. And they don't. They just say, oh, I got to go there. I want to go there because I want to look just like that, and they don't realize that. It's not that simple. You got to do your research.
Well, you're right about that. And with that in mind, I'm not giving you the go-ahead. Honestly, I still believe surgery is the last resort. If you could hold off another 10 years and just live your life and feel comfortable, then I would do that. But
I
also
understand.
being that you're 57 years old, you're making, you've done a lot of research over the years. You've listened to the show for 20 years. You know what the possible downside of hair transplant surgery can be.
Right.
And you can end up looking worse than you do right now. That's a very real possibility. Now, it may not be, it may be a relatively small chance, but given that you have a thick head of hair right now, I mean, it's going to take some work to match that hairline.
I wouldn't go that far that it's thick head of hair. I would say it's fine, but it has coverage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, if you touch it and everything, it's still very fine. You have to put a lot of products in it to make it look really good.
Tell me about it, dude. This thing stands on its own.
Yeah. So basically, I have to, work with it to do that. But it would be nice to be able to push it up and back and, have a different hairstyle and just, it would be nice.
It would be nice, but you still might not be able to do it. You still may be able to. Here's what could happen. You can get a great transplant and realize, you know what, I still have to wear it down, but at least when the wind blows, it's not going to be a whole thing. That could be what you end up with, which would be great. That alone would be a blessing, right? Not having to worry about the wind.
I'll tell you the truth. Just knowing my hairline, the hairline to reshape my face and know that it's lower than it was is enough to. I'm not, and remember, I'm not going too low. Joe gave me advice on what to do at one time. I don't know if he remembers, and I'm pretty much.
Joe can't remember what he had for breakfast, man.
Yeah, you're probably right. He
barely.
probably doesn't even remember me from
Barely.
Joe probably doesn't even remember me from yesterday. Anyway,
Yesterday?
Hey, Joe. Yesterday, yeah. What was that?
I will throw in one more thing to consider, and that's if you have a hairline that's where the only challenge right now is its height, and that's why you're going to have a surgery. Keep in mind that a one pass also most likely won't get close enough to the density that you have now. So it will be a potential stopgap to where you need a secondary surgery.
Caller,
are
we doing the same show? Are you guys? Are we doing the same show, Joe?
Huh?
This is Spencer's show.
I guess so.
Joe.
Are we doing the same show? Because I could have swore I explained that to him.
No, you didn't.
I didn't. So I didn't say that you're not going to get this. It's possible not to get the same density. You're going to need more than one pass. Is that what you're telling me? You didn't. Are you telling me I didn't say that?
Well,
No,
not the way I did.
Not in so many words. Not in so many words.
Not in so many words.
Okay.
You
but
meant
I
to.
realize that. I realize everything that I'm. It's like I know everything that I'm doing, but that little boy inside me says, "You got to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it." You know that, Spencer. You know that little boy inside you that lives in there, and
I do, but I'm
still have that great head of hair. I know you have.
But I still am holding on. I don't mind the hairspray and the quasi comb over because I still feel so fortunate that I have as much hair as I have.
And you're absolutely right. I agree there. I'm on the same plane as you, and I realize that, but
I get
did
it.
all the research.
I get it.
You get it, right? And I realize that I have confidence in the doctor that I'm going to, that I will, that basically we're going to do everything that we can, everything that he asked to do, that's what I'm going to do. And I think that he wouldn't have taken me on as a candidate if he didn't think that I would be a good candidate. He actually said I was an ideal candidate because just like you said, I'm not a 20-something-year-old getting a transplant.
Right. But
I waited.
That helps.
That will help.
Right.
Listen, and what state, whereabouts are you having? You don't have to say who.
I'm going to Turkey.
You're going to Turkey, okay, and you're going to a well-known person?
Turkey. Yeah, well-known.
All right, so someone that is with the IHRS?
Yes, and he does his work himself. He does everything himself.
Okay. Well, I wish you the best of luck.
I appreciate that.
As you know, it's always open.
Spencer, you are my hair loss mentor from the beginning.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate that. Don't get yourself fucked up, all right? Just be really...
I won't get fucked up. I won't. Hey, Spencer, do you believe that most low Norwoods do pretty good with hair transplant as long as they go to somebody that is, excellent in their field?
I believe that you have a much better chance if you're older and you have not progressed significantly of having a long-term satisfactory outcome. However, with that said, what Joe said, I said it to you, but you guys just weren't listening, or I didn't say it clearly. What Joe said is very real. Like if you have a good density right now, your current hairline, and you're trying to just lower it, lower the hairline, it's very possible that when that grows out, you're going to be like, yikes, I really need more hair in there. So it may just help you with the comb down and framing the face, like when the wind blows or if like you're in bed with somebody or whatever. You may not be able to wear it back without having a couple of procedures. So just keep that in mind.
I do understand that this may not be my first one.
Yeah. All right, brother. Well, good luck. I appreciate you and bringing up the old show and that you've been around listening for so long. And I'm glad that you took my advice and Joe's advice for all these years.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate your time and taking my call.
You got it, man. You take care.
All
Take care,
thanks.
man.
You guys
Bye-bye.
have a great night. Have
Okay.
fun, Spencer, tonight.
I will. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
So, oh, no. I could really see how fucked up your hair is. I see it. I could see it. That's what he said. I could really... No. Are you kidding me? You look bald, man. I'm just kidding. 888-659-3727. Joe, we have time for one more call, or are you falling asleep?
Well, I was asleep before we even started the show, but no, we can go. Yeah, bring on another caller.
We'll take the last call. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Wayne from Pennsylvania.
Wayne from Pennsylvania.
Wayne.
Welcome.
Oh, yeah. Hey, so Dr. Victor Hassan of Hassan and Wong stated that he believes minoxidil can cause damage to the skin. More specifically, it can cause aging because when people apply minoxidil to the scalp, he can see that the scalp appearance is different than people that don't apply minoxidil at all. And he would even ask his technicians to examine the scalp, and they came to the same conclusion as Dr. Hassan. So, do you think there's any merit to the fact that minoxidil can cause aging to the skin?
This is Joe's wheelhouse, so I'm going to let him answer that.
I know Dr. Hassan's position on this, but I can't say I've seen it myself as far as how a person looks compared to how they might look if they weren't taking minoxidil topically. But I have heard, I have read where some people have that same outlook on the use of topical minoxidil. I do think that if it is a possibility, it is such a minute possibility that it's something I personally wouldn't even begin to think twice about, because it's been out for 40 damn years. And if it was that big of an issue where it's prematurely aging the aesthetic of its users, then we would have heard about it quite a bit well before now. So while I do understand the approach or the concern or the observation, I think it's anecdotal at best, and it's isolated in just a few cases. I can't say, and I actually don't know of anyone else that can say that they believe the same thing across the board for majority or even a moderately strong minority of users. I just don't see it.
So basically what Joe is saying is that it's bullshit.
So you think it's a side effect then for a minority of users?
Well, I would say obviously, because there are so many people that are using it, yet you haven't heard about it most likely until Dr. Hassan mentioned it to you. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Like it's
Yeah.
been around for almost
But then
40
he's
years.
Such a noted
So
and acclaimed hair transplant doctor. What he says does have some
Well,
merit, or at least
no,
has some weight to it. So.
I agree with that. I understand that logic why that would carry more weight. But if insert name of noted physician or scientist here said that the sky was green when we all know it's not, then it's like, really? Like that's kind of a strange statement to make.
There's a doctor in New York, I'm not going to mention any names, he used to put out there online that, when he would see people who came in after, wearing a hair system for a while, that their skin was permanently changed underneath the tape or the glue areas. And while there can be a change of the texture of the skin when someone removes their hairpiece, in time, that skin becomes to look, actually becomes normal. So his whole thing was, in my view, that, put aside the hairpiece, is come and get a hair transplant because you're going to make it more difficult for us to transplant your hair. Now, what a lot of doctors realize is if they explain to the patient they should, if they're going to wear hair for, before the transplant, try to fix it in a different way for a while and let the scalp start to kind of, get back to a normal condition, which it does. So it's kind of the same thing. And this guy put it out online everywhere, and it was in all the forums. And guys who were wearing hair felt that, they were doomed, that they can never get a transplant because the hair is not going to grow normally in scar tissue. And none of that was the case.
And I'd like to, Dante Manelli in the chat room, hang on a second, Wayne. So Dante Manelli in the chat room, he says, but Joe, haven't you mentioned that minoxidil makes the skin tissue like steak gristle? Well, I have, and it does for a lot of patients when we're talking about the underlying tissue and how it reacts to recipient site creation, making incisions, things like that. But it doesn't mean that it ages the appearance of the epidermis. I've never seen anyone walking around after a year of using minoxidil and then suddenly, wow, you look 5 years older instead of 1 year older, or 10 years. Like, I've never seen that. So what I've been talking about is not the aesthetic. I'm talking about the underlying physiology of scalp tissue. When you're making incisions, it can alter how that tissue responds to incisions, where it is gristly. It almost cracks. That's not really the best word to describe it, but there is a difference. But the top layer, the epidermis, what we see when we look at people, I can't ever recall ever looking at someone and saying, yeah, you need to stop using minoxidil. It's making you look old.
But if you do cut off the top of their heads and count the rings, that's how you could tell, Joe.
That's a good point. Yeah. So
yeah, I wouldn't,
Dante.
I wouldn't be too concerned about it.
Yeah, it's not related.
Yeah, I would not be too concerned about it. But just to get to Joe's point, if that is the case, if there is some sort of an issue with, making it more difficult to create recipient sites, then obviously there are some changes to the skin, to the structure of the skin and the underlying structures underneath the epidermis, right? The dermis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So to me, that would indicate that there's some sort of either DNA damage being done or some sort of like weakening of the collagen, which in turn can make someone look older.
Which does change with cessation of use, by the way. It does change after. It does change after cessation.
Well, then
so it's only temporary.
That's a good point.
Using minoxidil for those people affected by.
But also understand this: neither of us have looked at this under a microscope. Neither of us have taken like a histology report. We don't know what the fuck's going on underneath or on the skin when you're putting any of these products on your scalp. So, I mean, we can't say that it's temporary, it's not temporary, but it's just based on Joe's experience and also just our observations. First of all, everyone I know, most people I know have been using minoxidil forever. And to my eyeballs, they've never aged their skin in any way. So, who knows?
Well, what about oral minoxidil? Would it have that kind of effect for some people?
Who knows? We don't know what's going on. I don't know what finasteride's doing to me. Who knows? They could do an autopsy on me when I drop dead, and they could be like, holy cow, look at whatever part of his body. This has to be because of finasteride. I have no idea what it's doing to me.
It's so small.
I mean, it could be your diet, it could be other drugs you're taking, and so forth.
It could be anything.
Yeah.
It could be the aggravation just doing this show causing me stress. I don't know.
Keep in mind, Wayne, that one of the side effects of minoxidil is baggy or puffy eyes, and dark circles under your eyes. Like that. That's actually a side effect as well. So that technically could make you look older, for sure. But even that, I've never even seen that myself. I've never seen it. So, look, I think that if you are a user of minoxidil in any form, and someone tells you that it ages you, your aesthetic, I would ask for examples, because that's what it comes down to. Like anyone can say anything they want, and if they have some sort of letters by their name, or they have some sort of reputation in some field for whatever reason that is considered to be legitimate, that's fine. But question everything. Like question motives. Question it on its surface. It's like, okay, well, if Dr. So-and-so says this, when have I ever seen it in the wild? There's so many people are using minoxidil. I think it's a logical question anyone would ask themselves, like, well, when have I seen this? I haven't. Or are they pointing to examples? If they feel it's worth talking about, do they have examples to share? If the answer is no, even if you ask if they have examples, then what do they have to go by?
Yeah, that's true. And then another way is you can gauge yourself by taking pictures, and that will be documentation of your aesthetics, and you can compare these pictures along some timeline, and if there are any drastic differences besides normal aging, then you can possibly attribute that to the usage of minoxidil.
Yeah, but excuse me. But it all, pardon me. It all comes down to what you've seen, what you've noticed yourself, or if you think about it later on, after the fact, start paying attention. Start talking to people that do use minoxidil in some form, and ask them, have you noticed that you're starting to look older faster? I think it's a legitimate question to ask, and when it comes to documentation, I think that if clinics are noticing such a drastic change to where they would actually warn their patients against it because of this, then maybe take some photos and document this. Maybe share it with your colleagues and stop keeping it, in-house as a in-house clinic secret for some reason that you're only sharing anecdotally with patients. It doesn't make any sense.
I've never seen a paper on it. I've never even in rags like sorry, it's just how I feel. Like the Hair Transplant Forum International, which is hilarious. They have like classified ads. Even in publications like that, you're not seeing it. At least to my knowledge, any of the papers I've ever read. It's something that everyone's talking about in the meetings as well.
Yeah.
So I've only heard it from one source in my 26 years in the industry. And I've heard this before from the same source. So, look, I could be wrong. It can make you look old as shit. I don't know. But I don't think so.
Okay, I think that's fine. I think I feel better about it. I just wanted to get some confirmation from, experts such as you guys.
Well,
if you feel comfortable with it, then I think I'm good with it as well.
Well, and I think you'll be able to tell pretty quickly if it's irritating your scalp or changing your scalp in any way, and if you start to see, heaviness under your eyes and things like that. Now, granted, if you continue to have puffy eyes for many years, you are stretching that skin out, and that can cause, wrinkling, loss of elasticity, things like that. It's unlikely, though. So, again, we're not doctors, but just observationally, doing this for so long, I just don't see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, brother. Good luck.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for your help.
You got it.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Wayne.
Good night.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You know, like doctors who are talking about how, they know what their transection rates are.
Yeah, that's a good one.
We have a 98% graft survival rate. How the F do you know? Maybe you
we did
one
a study.
small
Really?
study.
When?
Yeah.
1997.
Yeah, exactly. And when doctors claim that their FUE grafts are better than grafts dissected from a strip, I have to laugh. I have to laugh. That is the biggest bunch of bullshit that's pumped out there for public consumption.
The timing is amazing.
The what? The timing of it, yeah.
The timing on those announcements are amazing.
Absolutely. And for some practices, it happened within 1 year of having to convert over to FUE.
I know.
I've had people on this broadcast 1 year saying that they still think that FUT is the gold standard in every respect, including graft survival, lack of many grafts that are extracted via FUE can be slightly denuded. It depends. So all these issues were brought up, and then all of a sudden a year later they're on the show. You know what? I just realized after doing this for a while, in my hands,
14
FUE
times.
grafts are just as robust. It's just, if you just go back and you look at the oral history and now the video history of this field, which I have it all, if you want to see hypocrisy and bullshit and just,
its finest.
backpedaling and just every aspect of the evolution of this field, I have it all, man. It's hilarious. It really is. And the bullshit, dude. From 1 year to the next, from coming out of the same people's mouths.
It runs deep.
It does run deep. Okay, guys, we're going to go. It is time for us to call it an evening. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate everyone who decided to call in. It makes great content for those who are really in need of this information. That's why we do the live broadcast. We certainly don't make any money from this. I can tell you that right now. But we do it because we still believe, or at least I do, that this is important. It's important work. Doesn't matter if we reach 2,000 people a week on average, or 3,000 or 5,000. At least they're going to have access to the truth. And that's why we do this.
Yep. Right on.
Again, until next time, be strong, God bless, and thank you so much for listening. Good night.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the programme, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid.